One. Welcome to Washington East to West Sports. This is episode 37. I am Matt Beatty, joined alongside, as usual, by Sean Beatty and Kevin Ardall. If you want to get involved in the show, go ahead and tweet at us. I am at Beatty_Matt. Sean is at Sean_Beatty. Kev is at Kev's Believes the first team believes being a 3. Subscribe to our page on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think of all the topics that we talk about. I do want to mention briefly before we get into some Mariners and some Seahawks talk. So yesterday I came home. Everybody was out doing Mother's Day stuff. I was like, you know what? The Sounders are on TV. They're on ABC. I'm going to watch them. Turned into a good game in the second half. First half was a little bit boring. Second half, Portland had 2 penalty kicks that they missed, and then Rui Diaz converted a PK, followed by Freddie Montero with a beautiful header to put it away for good. There was a nice free kick goal by Portland there in the extra time, but Seattle was able to hold on, and good game to watch. Seattle still undefeated in the MLS, so good to see the Sounders rolling. Soccer pun slightly intended. So, gentlemen, let's get into some Seattle Mariners baseball. So, we got some news that broke before our show, and that's nice. We love that. Keep doing that, Mariners. Keep doing that all the time. But let's talk about the week that was. And guys, it was not great. It was not great. So we'll start with the beginning of last week. So they lost 5-3 at home to the Orioles. And then on Tuesday, they won 5-2 against the Orioles, lost the series against the Orioles with a 6-0 loss on Wednesday. They had an off day before they went to Texas. They were able to win on Friday 5-4 before falling on Saturday and Sunday 9-8 and 10-2 on Sunday. Brings the Mariners record total to 18-17. So, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you, it was not a whole lot of games this past week, but what did you see? And, what did you think of the games in Texas as well as the games against Baltimore? Sean, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I was going to say next week we need to talk more about the Sounders because I have a lot to say about that. But the Mariners, I was less than pleased. You have 6 games against Baltimore and Texas, and you go, 2-4 against them? You should not be losing series to Baltimore and Texas. If people think they're going to do a lot, they're going to be better than I thought they were. I only said they were going to win 71 games. So this was par for the course for me. But if people think they're going to win a bunch of games, you cannot lose series to Baltimore. That's just, they're bad. However, I will say John Means Business, the guy who no-hit the Mariners, is a very good pitcher. He's very underrated. I own him in several fantasy teams. People should know who he is. So being no-hit by him is not he's the best pitcher you don't know. So he's not a Humber, like when the Mariners got no-hit by him. John Means he's pretty good. He's pretty good. So that's the one guy in Baltimore that I give a pass to, but losing 2 out of 3 in Texas too, like it's not good. It's really not good. Their bats need to wake up. Although Kyle Lewis is hitting and JP Crawford is hitting, which is nice. And you have Ty France is struggling a little bit, but that's gonna happen. He's not gonna have a 980 OPS for the season. You knew that was coming. It would be nice if he sprinkled in occasional hits and didn't go like, what did he end up, guys? Like 0 for 27 before he got his double or something like that. Maybe sprinkling a hit here and there, but literally not getting a hit for 3 series or whatever it was, or 2 series kind of hurt the Mariners. But Mitch Haniger is still doing Mitch Haniger things. So having 4 guys there that are, or I guess Kyle Seager too, 5 guys there that are doing something, or you can rely on something, at least for now, is nice. But hopefully very soon it'll be 6 people you can rely on. So the rotation and the bullpen blew a couple games, but again, like we said, the bullpen's not going to be as good as it was in the beginning. So we understand that, but these teams, you've got to be able to not give up 19 runs in 2 games to Texas. You've got to not score 10. You got doubled up there. You've got to make these games close, and losing 2 series against those 2 teams is not good.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
More or less the same. I mean, it wasn't too I know we're still building and stuff like that, so these kids are going to make a mistake. Even though, as Sean mentioned, both these teams are very bad. So it's like poop versus poop a little bit, but rising poop versus like downward poop.
We should be, Kevin said our poop should be better than their poop at this point, though.
Yes, it should. I bullpen, I think, has been struggling a little bit with injuries too, because we brought up a couple of guys. And they're not going to be perfect forever. That'd be crazy if they were. I like to see the starting pitching, other than Kikuchi, is still scary for somewhat part, but honestly, it's nothing that we should be too worried about, because most of these pitchers are not going to be starting for us anywho, other than like Marco and maybe Kikuchi if he keeps continuing to do what he's doing. But Kikuchi would be our fifth, probably, down the line, or even sixth if you want to take a six-man rotation still when you bring all those guys up. You should never get no-no'd. Yes, as Sean mentioned, the guy is very underrated, but at the same time too, you're a Major League Ball club that's getting paid money to, and you have a lot of good hitters on that team. So it sucks, but we almost threw a no against the Astros with Kikuchi, so it can happen to even some of the best teams. Other than
there's
that,
been 5 already this year, so
other than that, the only thing I'm gonna kind of highlight a little bit more is JP Crawford. Holy crap, like he's raised his, I know average is not really a whole thing, but like his average has gone up from like 180 to like he's almost at, I think he's at 280 right now. No, he's
something close to that.
He's 270 right now. That's still impressive. Like the dude's been putting work in, and I'm happy to see it, because he's a beast at shortstop. So I hope he continues, and he's also very good fast base runner. He can get a steal, so that's what we want to see. I want to see that from other people like Dylan Moore, Evan White. Like I want to slowly see some progression. I'm not saying like next week they hit 500, but like I want to see just a smidge worth of raising that bar little by little type of deal. So.
I would like to say about the Means pitching performance. That was a perfect game. I know what the rule is. That's a perfect game. Like I understand that is technically a walk, but that's a perfect game. Like
it's
that.
Also,
that's
it's
ridiculous.
Also funny, Matthew, because what you said, a perfect game is 27 up, 27 down, and he did that. 27 people came to the plate, and 27 people got out.
A called third strike to reach base, like that's a perfect game. Let's.
He never gave up a hit or a walk or an error, or hit by pitch, which is technically what you need. However, it's the one other thing that gets you on base. Yeah.
And so I understand, tradition, the rules, but we can change some of these older rules to fit the times now. So we can say that is a perfect game. We could say that Madison Bumgarner threw a no-hitter earlier this year, even though it was 7 innings as opposed to 9. So let's change some older rules, because that was a perfect game by John Means, and well earned. He just, you kind of watch the at-bats, and he just was on his game the whole time. So, credit to John Means for absolutely just destroying that Mariners batting lineup. I wasn't able to catch mini games this week. I was able to watch the game on Saturday, and it was actually a pretty good game. It was 9-8 Texas won in the end, but I liked the back and forth. Like I watched the middle innings for the most part. I saw Luis Torrens hit a home run to put him ahead. So
Did you see how the Rangers scored their 9th run though?
I did not. I hung up by that point. I was eating dinner with Lauren, so I didn't catch the end, unfortunately.
Second and third ground ball. Luis Torrens catches it, touches home plate, throws it to first, not knowing that it was not a force out.
Oh boy, that was the play. Okay, I saw it. I saw it on Twitter.
That is why
I didn't have
we
the
did not go
context.
into extra innings.
Okay,
yeah.
Well.
You got to make that play.
Maybe it's time to call up Cal Raleigh, but we'll get to that in a little bit here. So I was able to catch that game. I caught a little bit of Tuesday's Baltimore game, the one they won. So overall, the Mariners, we've talked about how we thought they were going to do this year. I think this is mainly just them coming back down to earth. I think the beginning of the season was kind of them playing great baseball and exceeding expectations, and now they're kind of slowly coming back down to earth. They're not terrible. They're still above 500, and they could easily have the season go in either direction. So it's certainly not like over or anything by that mean. But we
play the Dodgers here though, so you better start playing better.
Yeah, you got 2 games against the Dodgers on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you go to your home against Cleveland for 4 games. So they've got some tough competition coming up, so we'll see how they do against those two teams. But there's it's only May, so there's plenty of time for the Mariners to figure it out and get things going. I like how Kevin mentioned JP Crawford. I mean, he's been hitting really well, and whenever I'm playing MLB The Show, I always seem to hit the best with JP Crawford as well as Mitch Haniger. So I think that has something to do with it, obviously. Just because I'm good with JP Crawford in the game, that means he's batting well in real life. So I think that's how that works. I think that's how that translates. So yeah, it's really nice to see JP Crawford coming into his own, because he's a great defensive player. It's just the bat is really where he needs to improve the most, I would say. So it's nice to see him playing well. Now let's get into the news of the day, and I mean today on a Monday when we're recording. So I'm gonna bring up the tweet by Jeff Passan here. So according to ESPN's Jeff Passan, outfielder Jarred Kelenic, the number 3 prospect in baseball, is expected to be called up by the Mariners on Thursday. Sources familiar with the situation tell ESPN. While things can obviously change, the plan is to promote Kelenic for the first game of Seattle's home series versus Cleveland. So I'm sure we're going to share our thoughts on this. So I'm just going to start with this. Better late than never. It's nice they're finally calling him up. He should have been on this roster the entire time. There's no reason why he shouldn't have been. He showed in spring training he should be on this roster. And then when he was in Tacoma, the first game of the season, he knocks out 2 home runs, and everyone's like, well, that guy should be up. So, you guys always talked about, like, is he ready? Why rush him? All that sort of stuff. Like, I didn't see any reason to hold him back at this point. Like, let's unleash the Kelenic. Let's unleash the Kelenic, and let's see how he does. Because at this point, I don't think he has anything more to prove in minor league baseball. I want him to be on the Mariners squad, and I want him to show us what he can do. And that's great. He's going to get his shot here, hopefully on Thursday, unless things change. So, Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll let Sean go into the one reason. I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
Yeah.
I'll give another little reason too, even though what he's done so far is impressive. It's a super small sample size, very small. Like he's got, I mean, we saw single A, he was single A in 2019, right? Yeah. And now he's going to triple A. And even though he started well, I mean, the Mariners also started well this year. And now we've kind of seen what, baseball is a very hard thing to be consistent at. I think he will be. Don't get me wrong, because he's a beast. And also his performance against Mackenzie Gore, one of the top pitching prospects, was also very impressive. Because Mackenzie Gore is also a freaking beast.
The number 4 prospect in baseball.
Yeah. So I loved what I saw there. That kind of, to me, I was like, okay, he's probably ready. That's like the fan in me. Now if I'm the business person, which I'm gonna let Sean, I also want to say, to extend to my thing, I want to see more of that. Like I want to see that on a consistent basis for a minimum a month, in my opinion. But I know fans want to, they want to spice things up, because honestly, the top of the lineup is like good right now in Mariners, and then everybody like from 5 down is like sub 200, and that's not good. Excuse me. So that's, and as I mentioned before, not that batting average is everything, but their hitting is just not to the level it should be at this point. For a season to be. At the same time too, you shouldn't be worried, because this is not a season that you're trying to go to the postseason, but you know what I mean. You want to always strive for the best expectations. So on that note, I will pass it to Sean for the one major reason.
The one major reason that Kevin knows is in 6 years, when he is still a Mariner, you will appreciate it. So the extra year of team control. So because I think as it goes, he will not sign an extension with the Mariners. So enjoy every second that you have of the next 7 years of Jarred Kelenic. I think he'll be gone after that. But I hope it changes, but I don't think it will. Yeah, like Kevin said, I think the big one was Mackenzie Gore. He had never faced anybody like that in a game that really mattered, that was documented. And it's a big lefty with major league level talent. And he went 1 for 2, but the one out was like a line drive, like rocket. So like, I don't know the specifics on it. I didn't look at Baseball Savant, but like I assume it's like an 89% like hit rate. Like usually it's a hit. and it just happened to be caught. So like it wasn't so much the results they were looking for, it was the approach against proven big lefties, because you know he's going to get as a lefty pull hitter, he's going to get attacked with the lefties when they come out of the pen and things like that. And they wanted to see how he does against big lefties, because Kevin said he had 90 at bats at Double A and everything else was at Single A. Single A, most of those guys are never going to sniff the majors. We needed to see how he was doing against people who were the major league caliber pitchers who had more than one pitch and threw at him from the left side. And just the 2 at bats from a guy like that, we're like, okay, he was on both things. Again, it's the number. He's a top 5 prospect in any metric you look up. Anything. Mackenzie Gore's a beast. He was number 1 2 years ago, and then Wander Franco showed up. But who hit a ball on Saturday that it hasn't landed still. I think that they saw enough just in the fact that like he saw power lefties, major league ready lefties, and he did very well against them. And other than that, yeah, Matthew, I agree. Talent-wise, he's there, but that extra year is going to be real nice at the end of this contract. Because again, at the end of this year, it's not going to matter anything at all. So
I want to ask you, why do you think he will leave? Because it feels like you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where he's going to leave. Like there's no other possibility. Like, is it money? Is it lack of winning? What is it?
He's complained for a year and all last year about not being called up when he probably shouldn't have been last year. Then he complained this year about not being called up, got hurt, and then Mathers thing came out. Like, it doesn't bode well for him right now. I mean, there's a lot that can change in 6 years, but like right now, if you had to put money on it, I don't think he signs, because the Mariners, what guys have they signed giant extensions to?
Your hope is that, one, he'll be more mature. He's going to be he'll be like 25, 26. He'll be a little more.
He's 21, so he'll be like 27, 28. Yeah. 28.
So he'll be more mature adult to where he can kind of, but at the same time too, Mariners need to be kissing that booty.
Yeah, but Kevin, your point is like, I don't think he's doing anything immature. He is like Matthew said, he is correct. He was a top 3 outfielder for the Mariners. It was just Kelenic also has to understand the business side of it. Like, look, they're going to manipulate your service time. You know that's what's going to happen. And I get he didn't like it. That's baseball.
But just because you can manipulate service time doesn't make it right. Like that is where you got to see Kelenic's side of it. Like
then negotiate that not part of the CBA. Like that's, I mean,
I think they've got an opportunity here coming up, right?
I know, yeah, but that, but like as a baseball team, like analytics driven, like you know that the best players are on the rookie deal. That's all your value. I mean, every sport, but like baseball specifically, like they do not. Robinson Cano do not sign guys 31. Albert Pujols do not sign 10-year contracts of 31-year-olds because that's trash. And you're like, you're saying like give up one of those prime years because you want to compete for a week, like in a season you're gonna be trashing. Like it's hard to convince Jerry Dipoto, whose job it is, or who's fighting for his job, to be like, okay, I'll give up that 1 year for nothing, basically.
I mean, I understand that part of it from Dipoto, but at the same time, like maybe if you like listened to him and maybe kind of conceded a few things and, allowed him to do what he says he can do, then he might be more willing to stay in the future, even if they don't have success, even if they don't have the money to pay him. That's where I'm kind of. But that's the thing, like that is a year in theory you will compete and you're going to waste it hoping you sign him for like $400 million. It's not even like you're going to get a discount from him. He's going to get market value. So you're going to have to pay him $400 million and over like 10 years or whatever the value is at that point. It might be $500 million. Like he's going to require a bajillion dollars and he will be older and you will have wasted a year not competing. So like, I mean, I get Kelenic, and like Kevin said, like, yeah, he'll mature, but Kelenic's not wrong on this. Kelenic is right. He was held down solely for manipulation, but every player basically is, barring a couple, like rare circumstances. Like I agree the rule that Matthew's done, but until that rule changes, I don't blame the Mariners organization for doing it. It makes perfect sense. I mean,
why they would
I understand
both sides get it.
The reason.
Both sides get it.
It's just a matter of the player versus the organization. And on this one, I would have to side with Kelenic because I'm the guy who says I'm ready. And if you don't believe it, that's fine. But when it comes time for me to pick to stay or go, then why would I stay if you don't believe in me? Why you didn't believe in me, so why would I stay?
They all know that it's not that they believe in him. They knew he was ready. Mathers told you why he wasn't called up. Like he literally said in an interview, we are manipulating his service time. That's why, like straight up. and they got rid of him.
Yeah, because you want to perpetuate
Extend
the
the
window
window
of success. You can bring him up this year, but you'd be like, Kelenic, even if we bring you up, like we're not going to win anything because we don't have the pieces around you yet.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
Give you an extra year later on, and you have the pieces around.
Let's say all these guys come up and do things. Raleigh's a beast. Kelenic's a beast. Julio's a beast. It'll be interesting to see what you do with Marte if you call him up day one, because like in that situation, you'll be good. You'll have your Hancock, your Kirby, your Gilbert, and they're all beasting up here.
Let's preface this by saying Mariners good. Like,
okay,
I don't know what that is. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Let's say, because there's other teams that call him up day one, but like, like they're ready to compete, and a guy like Marte could help you in theory in a couple of years. And so, would you call him up day one to get those extra couple of weeks to save the year? Because it's like, look, we will compete this year and try to get all 8 or 7 seasons. But Kelenic is like, he might be an absolute monster. But as we see, Mike Trout ain't helping the Angels win playoff games. He's never even been in the playoffs. So one batter ain't going to do a whole lot. The Angels have the best 2 through 4 in baseball, and they ain't winning nothing. So they're in last place. So Jarred Kelenic, let's be very real. Like, Jarred Kelenic's limit on what he can do for this team this year, winning-wise, is relatively small by himself.
And yeah, I agree with that. I mean, one player in baseball, it's very much a team sport. Baseball is. So obviously bringing Kelenic up is, a lot of it is probably marketing. Like, they need to put fans in the stands, and Kelenic will sell tickets. So that also helps as well.
You've never asked me this, Matthew. Straight up, what I would do is I would have called up Kelenic probably day one. But business, if I'm the manager, I call him up day one. If I'm the general manager, I do not call him up day one. What I would want to see, obviously, was Kelenic day one. That's obviously what I want to see. But
I mean, I honestly think if Kelenic leaves, Dipoto's gone. I don't really see a scenario where his prospects leave to go to other teams and he keeps his job. I don't really see a world where that happens.
I mean, that happens with the Rays every year. Like, that's Oakland A's. Like, they leave every year. Like, if you can refresh that, that's like literally Moneyball. Like, that's the whole point. Like, prospects leaving doesn't mean anything. If you win during that 8-year period, it doesn't matter if they leave. It's just, Kelenic's leaving isn't an indictment against Jerry. Like, it means nothing to Jerry. Are they winning? That's the only thing that matters if Jerry's going to keep his job or not. If these prospects pan out.
Yeah, I could. If they win, I imagine winning solves a lot of problems. So yeah, I can see that. But
Jerry didn't get drunk and go to the Roto meeting or whatever and say a bunch of stupid shit.
That is
so
true. That
it's
is
not
true.
him that did it. Yeah.
Jerry did not say that. So let's talk a little bit about the rest of kind of the prospects in the Mariners organization. So you guys mentioned Cal Raleigh a little bit. I was hoping you guys might be able to talk a little bit about how he did. I've seen Julio doing pretty well in Everett right now, so that's really nice to see. Hopefully Sean can, utilize Nolan to get an autograph before he goes any further up the
He won't be there in June.
chain.
But
you never know. So Sean, anything you want to report from the Mariners prospects and or Kevin?
Oh, you can go ahead first, Kevin, if you have anything to go.
Yeah, I with work and everything, I have not, other than the Mariners, I have not been able to keep up on. Other than the Kelenic, like the Kelenic stuff I saw, but down in Modesto and all that, no.
There's okay, I could go for a while, but I'll keep it short. Cal Raleigh hasn't been hitting great. I mean, that's kind of what I expected. He's like a decent hitter with like switch hitter with some power. I mean, he's gonna be Mike Zunino with some power, or I guess Mike Zunino had power, but like that's kind of what it is. He stole a base today, so that was kind of cool to see, and he was like a clean steal, like. So a catcher with a little bit of wheels, like that's nice to see. Logan Gilbert was beasting, Hancock's beasting. Those are the big two. Kirby was beasting, and I think he ended up giving up 3 runs, but that was because he went 3 2/3 with the bases loaded and left giving up 0 runs, and the bullpen proceeded to let all 3 inherited runners score. So it really isn't his line doesn't look as bad as it actually was supposed to have been. I mean, you could give up 1 run, but letting all 3 score is just bad pitching from the bullpen. It wasn't even a grand slam. They just like let multiple hits in. So let's see. Marte has been playing pretty well. I want to see Austin Schenten is a guy that people need to be looking at. He's down there with Julio and those guys. And where is he at?
I did see that tweet that got lit up by
where he's not good.
Some guy, I don't know who he writes for, but like some dude was just saying that because Austin Schenten was good at everything, it made him average. Which I was like,
I was literally talking to my buddy Andrew. Shout out to Andrew about Austin Schenten the day before, who's been till yesterday was tearing it up, and the last 2 years his ones created plus average was like 150, which the average is 100. So he's been like a player and a half, basically a normal player at his level. And so he's been killing it, at least offensively. And the guy tweeted like, "Oh, he's not very good." I'm like, well, that's literally the definition of above average. Like he's literally above average by the metric we have. So he's been getting a lot of hype by non-Mariner people in the offseason. So he's a guy that's like going to climb up some lists. Caden, I'm going to brutalize his last name, Polovich, the guy they drafted this year in the 3rd round, or I guess, he's there. Zach Deloche again, 2nd round. They're all kind of like high Everett. If you're in Everett or the Dust Devils, go watch Everett because they're absolutely going to maul people. They have Hancock, Kirby, all those guys. They have like, I think 4 of their top 100 prospects on that team. They're going to absolutely maul. So me and Kevin are in the Tri-Cities. The Dust Devils are there. They don't play the Dust Devils until June 20th, something like that. I don't think most of these guys will be on the team anymore. That's how quickly I expect some of these guys to move up. So just so you know, they'll be in AA Arkansas before too long, because the rate that they're all producing at, Julio and all those guys, they'll be moved on up.
All right, and I just want to let people know LJ Newsome was placed in the 10-day IL yesterday. Doesn't actually give a like an actual injury, so I don't really know what he hurt, but he is on the 10-day IL. I don't know if either of you know what he hurt, but LJ Newsome is currently on the shelf. But yeah, we do need to mention, like we talked about earlier in the month, or earlier in April, how the Mariners were leading the division, so were the Kansas City Royals, but they've fallen off. They're 1-9 in their last 10. The Dodgers, who are, everyone is as good at baseball, they are 2-8 in their last 10 and at 3rd place in the NL West. So it's still May. There's still lots of time for all these teams to sort themselves out come August and September. But just know, probably won't have a good picture of who's real and who's not until probably about July at that point. So just kind of keep your Mariners expectations, low. And enjoy Jarred Kelenic because hopefully he puts on a show for all the fans that are able to come out to T-Mobile Park. So let us know what you think of Jarred Kelenic coming up, the Mariners' recent week. Go ahead and tweet us. I'm at Beta_Matt. Sean's at Sean_Betty. Kev's at Kev Believes with first C and Believes being a 3. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a comment. Tell us what you think. Follow our page on the Eli Network. But gentlemen, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Now, we're going to start with the story that has been covered by pretty much everyone. But we also need to give our takes about it because it's a really cool story. So DK Metcalf, Seahawks wide receiver, ran in the USA track and field qualifiers. So it was technically the Golden Games, I believe, which is qualifier for the Olympics. So
no. The Olympic trials are later. He is nowhere close to Olympic trials now.
Oh, okay. Well, isn't this how you can qualify for the Olympic trials?
You can be invited to the Olympic trials or you could qualify. This is like an open invite.
Okay. So there were quite a few Olympic caliber runners there from all the stuff I saw. So DK Metcalf, very fast Seattle Seahawks wide receiver. He ran a 10.37 in the 100-meter dash. Now, out of 17 runners in this event, he finished 15th. Now, for those people who are saying, he finished 15th, it doesn't really matter. He's not a sprinter. That is very impressive for a man who does not do this for a living. Like, Kevin is a pharmacist. I couldn't go in and do what Kevin does. Don't get a prescription from me. Don't do that. I can't do what Sean does with surgical tech and do what he does. That is not how the world works. DK, with his physical prowess, went and tried this out in the 100-meter dash. And if you watch the video, he was with the pack. He wasn't far behind. He wasn't lagging behind. He kept his own. And if you look at him compared to everyone on that line, he is a beast. compared to those runners. Now, obviously, you want to be a little bit lighter to run a little bit faster. So obviously, the muscle probably slows him down a little bit. But, watching him run that fast and doing as well as he did, I heard on Around the Horn today that football players are the best athletes. Debatable, in my opinion, but they are very good athletes, definitely top 3 in the world. So I think it's very impressive that DK did this, and I'm surprised no one has video clipped a Russell Wilson deep ball on that track clip. Because come on, internet, where are you? Let's clip a Russell Wilson deep ball in there. How easy is this? Come on, if I could do it, I would do it, but I can't. All right, so somebody on the internet do it for us. Sean, what do you think?
Let's go to Kevin, because I can get really detailed about it.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Well, yeah, from what I was going to say, one, and as Sean's probably going to agree with me too, I'm glad he just didn't get hurt.
Because that was the biggest one. That was number 1 and 2.
I don't like players getting hurt in off-field things like Malik McDowell, ATP,
Kazuhiro Sasaki.
Like
At least he's running. It's not like he was doing something
exactly.
Running will help. Getting faster and sprinting will help you play football. I mean, it's not
for what he did. It kind of was impressive to a little bit of degree, just because most of these runners, that's their full-time job darn near, is to prepare for that. Just like when you graduate or when you are declaring for the NFL draft, you prepare for your combine. That's pretty much what you do. You prepare for that 40, prepare for that 3-cone drill, for that high jump. You do that's your in and out daily routine until it happens, and then you never do it again. But that Olympic athletes and stuff like that, that's literally what they do day to day. And even though DK does, running is part of it, it's still impressive that he's kind of somewhat up there with what people are doing it on a day-to-day thing. It just kind of shows his freak athleticism, in my opinion. But I'm just glad it's done with, so to speak. Now he can focus on football. That's where I'd rather have him at. It's cool that, if it makes him happy and he stays healthy, I'm all for it. Because I know people have other interests outside of apparently Tyler Lockett wants to have a bowling alley in his house. Who knows? That's what he tweeted the other day. Maybe he's a bowler.
Don't drop a bowling ball on your foot or anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot harder to hurt yourself bowling than it is running. Yeah,
I'll teach him. But anywho, so it was cool to see. Now that it's all the haters out there are gonna be like, oh, he's slow and stuff like that. He's not slow. He still runs a 4.3. It's it is what it is. So,
Sean.
So before I say anything, obviously DK is incredibly fast. He's a freak. Football players aren't asked to run 100 meters. Let's just be very clear here. So DK he's not built, and he hasn't been asked to run this long. Usually
I will say you are asked when your quarterback throws an interception and you're chasing a corner down the field. Yes.
The guy he's 100 meter dash is equivalent to 109 yards. So he almost ran that to catch Buddha.
Yeah,
so.
and the guy he's chasing was also not usually asked to run that, and then ghosted or slowed down. So what I will say is the guy he beat in his heat was a soccer player, was not a sprinter. And obviously they all coasted. They did not go all out because they all PR'd the next time. So all that means is not DK is very fast. It means, like Kevin said, it's a different animal. These track athletes, and none of them are going to medal in the Olympics. Only 2 will qualify. The big beasts were not there. All that means is DK is just not a top, because America has other than maybe a Jamaican or somebody else that'll sneak in there, it has you run 7 deep and from USA to top worlds. It's absolutely psychotic, how fast DK is at the size he is. What I did say surprised me, I'm going to get a little nerdy here running, because for those of you who don't know, I was a little bit of a runner. DK I thought would start really slow because that was Usain Bolt's thing, but he started actually really fast and just got shot with a tranquilizer dart and died because of his size. But he started really well. So that means to tell me if he lost some weight and trained, he would actually be pretty decent at this. He's never going to be Olympic level. But he could be qualifying level type of that stuff. Cause he did pretty well. The one thing I thought, based on his size, he'd be pretty bad at. So he impressed me there a lot. Like, yeah, and like I said, moving that big or that size, like, that's nothing to scoff at. And like Kevin said, if all the Seahawks just want to start an off-season bowling league, I'm fine with that. Just don't please get hurt running the 100 at like an invitation. Like, and he didn't get hurt, so I'm all for it. And honestly, more people, like, again, the like I said, the guy was a soccer player. Why don't we publicize that too? Like, have more people do this. I mean, I get, like, maybe you don't want to get hurt, but like, the odds are you probably won't get hurt. And again, at least it's relative to football. Like, you're working on speed. DK did a lot of speed training to do this, and speed will obviously help him on the football field. Like, he's training with Olympic athletes how to run faster. Granted, he's not training how to, like, move, but in reality, if you go in a straight line, you're going in a straight line, like, run real fast. And learning that, because that's what they do, the same thing when they're training for the combine and they're getting ready to get started the season. They train with sprinters, and more help with sprinters isn't going to hurt somebody unless he physically gets hurt. So all I'm saying is, like, I mean, you're just as likely to get hurt training as doing this. So I want to see Tyreek Hill and some of these other guys. Raheem Mostert's like talking trash, saying, what was it, 10-1 or something like that, saying he ran that when he was younger. So let's get out there. Let's have not this and have a meet of NFL players
for a charity event.
I'd like to see that, actually. Yeah,
have NFL players do this. Like,
NFL could put their Feeding America or whatever the heck they were promoting at the draft.
Have that be a Pro Bowl thing, and remove the Pro Bowl game. I don't want to see that anymore. It's a waste of time. Have a skills competition. Have 10 guys who want to run the 100. Let's see who's the fastest at the Pro Bowl. Let's bring the accuracy thing, make it more like, do stuff like that. Like, what are other cool things you can do, all of you, and all of them sprint? So let's see who the fastest is. Tyreek Hill, you think you finished 5th in the Olympic? Let's see you race DK and Mostert and these guys. I want to see that. So
yeah, I mean, Sean, as you know, like, running, especially that fast, like, it's a matter of milliseconds. Like, you could shave off here, you could shave off there. So if DK really had time to train, he might do, shave a little off here, shave a little off there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he probably wouldn't compete in the Olympics without a lot of training. And he hasn't done this since high school.
Detrimental.
Yeah,
he's 6'3". 6'3" is just too tall to be.
Well, Usain Bolt was 6'5".
Usain Bolt is the anomaly. He's the one guy who is like, again, it's the Tom Brady. It's not. He's the exception, not the rule. Like, he's the one guy in 100.
But it's possible. That's what I'm saying.
It is, but it's not. Just because you're 6'3", you're like, well, Usain Bolt did it.
He's saying they're not born every day. It's like,
I know they're not born every day, but it's possible. It's possible.
Yes, so but I will say he cannot compete simply because of 6'3". Like, but the one thing that slows down is usually his start, and his start was really good. So maybe if he slimmed down, he might have a better shot than I'm giving him credit for. But that's usually the case.
But a lot of there's a lot of basketball players that transition to football, so that's not out of the ordinary. A lot of baseball players. Dion, I think it's the last person to actually, play both sports at the same time. Russ was drafted to play baseball. Kyler Murray was drafted to play baseball. So there's a lot of athletes in the NFL that can do multiple sports and play multiple sports.
There's sprinters. A wide receiver for the Bills was an Olympic sprinter, and he got drafted, went to the combine, and then he got drafted. But his name was like Goodwin, but he never.
Tim Tebow playing for baseball.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's sprinters who try to come over and play football, and they have as much success as DK did. So, like, sprinters who are like, well, you couldn't do it. I'm like, well, sprinters can't come over and play football. Like, let's just be very clear.
It's there's a lot of things that can translate, but as a sprinter, we saw the guys lined up next to DK. Like, DK is built for football. Like, that's going to be a hard man to tackle. I mean, if you catch him at that, looking at his speed.
He was born to be a football player, not Olympic sprinter.
Absolutely.
And I think DK's job pays a little more. Let's just be very real here.
But I think it was good for both football and for track because, it brings a little bit of light to the NFL in an off season. And, the Olympics are 2 months away. So that might generate a little bit of interest on both ends as well.
They'll probably show it like on a Sunday Night Football thing.
Like, they'll probably show it during the Olympics. I would.
They'll show his speed matched up with his running, and
Kevin's right. NBC Sunday Night Football, they're gonna Collinsworth's gonna break this thing down like 20 ways from Sunday.
I don't want Collinsworth to break it down. He's not.
Oh, he's gonna be wrong in everything. Everything he talks about with sprinting, he's gonna be wrong. But
of course,
he will try to break it down.
Well, DK, well done. He said he's got mini camp coming up, so he's probably going to put the sprinting aside for now, but let's get into some news for the Seattle Seahawks. So after our time with Chris O'Neill, the Seahawks did have some signings. So they have signed a German linebacker. This was, I believe, on Tuesday after we recorded. So the Seahawks have signed German linebacker Aaron Donkor. So it's part of the NFL International Player Pathway Program. So there's another linebacker signing as well in Nate Evans that the Seahawks claimed him off of waivers. I believe this was on, looks like Wednesday. And then there were also two other notable roster moves. The Seahawks signed tight end Nick Gugamos, I believe is how you say it. Sorry, Nick, if I said your name wrong, or if you even hear this. So Nick Gugamos.
I'm sure he's listening intently.
I'm sure he is listening intently. And then the Seahawks claimed cornerback Savion Smith, I believe is how you say it. He played with Dallas last year and recently played in the XFL as well, while that was still a thing. So just wanted to get your guys' opinion on if any of these moves matter. I'll go ahead and start. The tight end room seems a little bit crowded, so I don't see Nick making the roster. Could be wrong, but I don't see him making the roster based on the tight ends that are already there. Savion Smith, you know, I do miss the XFL. I feel like it was kind of the NFL's developmental league, honestly.
It's coming back.
It is. We'll see how much it comes back and if it's still the same as it was when it, originally came back. But, those players on those teams certainly can play football. So it's good to see he got his chance with Dallas. Didn't really work out, but the Seahawks are going to give him another shot now. Seahawks have a lot of cornerbacks, and, I imagine they're trying to just kind of see what they got once camp rolls around, but there's a lot of cornerbacks there. They drafted Trey Brown. There's a lot of signings in the offseason. So, I mean, I think we're all fairly confident in DJ Reed and maybe Akil Witherspoon, but who knows? Who knows at this point? And then Nate Evans and Aaron Donkor, linebacker, there's some opportunity for linebackers. I mean, KJ's not currently on the roster, so you've got Bobby Wagner. You do have Jordan Brooks, who you drafted last year. You do have Cody Barton, so you've got some experience in the linebacker room, and then you've got BBK as well. So I think there's some opportunity for some other linebackers there, because obviously Bobby is going to be the go-to guy. But if Jordan doesn't play well, or maybe Cody doesn't play well, or there's going to be some opportunity for some other linebackers. And if KJ does come back, that'll probably take some opportunity away from some of these guys. But I feel like there is some opportunity at linebacker for maybe one or two of these guys, if not maybe special teams at the very least. But they're trying to fill out their roster a little bit, and it's always good to have options. Sean, what do you think?
I actually kind of think that Savion Smith, I'm not saying he's like a great player, but he has some NFL experience. He has started NFL games. He's only 23. If Pete is this cornerback whisperer, I mean, I like the idea of having a lot of corners. And if it's a true open competition, I like the idea of having guys that have some potential and seeing what you can get out of all of them. So throw a bunch against the wall and see what sticks. Make sure it's really an open competition. That's all I really want. So I like that one, like NFL guy that Kevin likes an NFL competition. The other guys that you're talking, I think, tight end. I think it's the nice that he's on the thing, but I don't think he's going to stay. Linebackers, though, you said, I think at this point you have to sign KJ, not because of anything else, but Eric Fisher just got signed. I don't know if you saw that, Matthew, by the Colts for a pretty reasonable amount of money. I mean, I know he's hurt and won't make the start of the season, but that's a pretty reasonable amount of money for a guy like that. So if they're not willing to spend that, they have to be willing to spend a little less and get KJ, or spend that little extra money, or Sherm or somebody. And I think at this point, Sherm's out of the question because there's so many corners, like you just said. So I think KJ is that. And then with that still leaves one of these two linebackers making the roster. And I don't know if they don't like BBK or something like that, but if they don't sign KJ and then one of these guys doesn't produce, that might mean one of these two gets a little bit of playing time. So, which kind of scares me a little bit, but I think we might be seeing one of these two guys. It's not crazy to think that.
I mean, it's hard to tell about Aaron Donker because international, like it's hard to tell how that game
Remember
might
the
translate.
German thing for later. Remember the German thing.
That's
for
true.
Later.
Kevin, what are your
I'll
thoughts?
bring it back.
Honestly, I don't think any of them are going to really matter, just because I don't trust Pete's evaluation of talent. If there is any, you guys kind of mentioned it, either the cornerback, just because he has played before, but I think that Witherspoon and Reed are going to be the starters, just because they make more money, and that's kind of what Pete kind of goes based off of. And I think they're probably better too, most likely. So just based off what I've seen, now I could be wrong. Who knows? And then, as Matt mentioned, there is a small possibility with a linebacker, just because we don't know KJ's status being in the air. But at the same time, too, you'd think you would go with Barton or BBK, just because they have more experience. Pete goes with the person who has more experience in his own system, unless the dude just picks it up like that. You're going to go with a guy that's known the playbook for 2 to 3 years, who's been integrated the system, knows the ins and outs of it. So you could make the roster possibly, or be even practice squad. Give him time to where if injuries happen, then you can bring him in. Whether he'll be a factor, who knows? It's too early to say. Honestly, until training camp comes, there's nothing really we can take out of this other than it's cool that they're going to international players more often. I mean, that's where we found Big Dick Dixon, stuff like that. So you can find talent, even though it's rare, but there is some talent that is outside the U.S. that you can kind of bring in. So it's cool to see.
I remember, didn't the 49ers have that one rugby player that was really famous?
Yeah.
They tried him out. Yeah.
He's a running back.
Yeah. I just remember they really tried to, utilize him, and didn't really work out so well, but it was, oh boy. Am I frozen? Is it me?
For him, I think.
Oh, I'm back. I was frozen there.
You're
for a
back.
second.
We were good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So international players, and rugby is the most translatable sport to football on the international level. So if there's some guys that might do well in rugby and not do well in football, and vice versa, but yeah, we'll see how the international player works out. So we've got a new segment on the show. It might be reoccurring here. It's called Sean's Nerd Stat of the Week. So this comes from this last week in our text threads, how Sean has liked to shown off nerd stats is how he phrases them. And he uses Pro Football Focus or some article or something to break stuff down into numbers. And so I want to give Sean the floor to present his nerd stat of the week. It could be Seahawks, it could be Mariners, whatever you want, Sean. Give us a nerd stat of the week, please.
Just so everybody knows out there, I didn't ask for any of this. I was told this was going to happen. So, and it's not usually Pro Football Focus, but this is what this one is. So, last couple weeks, this guy, German guy, named PFF Mo, who has been doing a lot of research on the NFL draft and what to expect from it. Over the last, I think he was looking at the last 15 years. He's been breaking down and kind of like destroying what people have thought about it. So here's my very quick graph of what it is. So at the bottom here is your rounds 1 through 7. And here is your
hold on, that number on the right is a 7?
Yeah, it's really
I thought it was a 2 for a second. Okay,
no,
sorry.
It's a 7.
Okay. Yeah,
it's a 7.
Right.
And this is your EPA, your points above expected added. So this is so obviously round 1, you get more, they're more valuable, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Down to 7, they're not that. This is correct, right?
I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly a straight plane, but
it's not. Sure. That's what I've been trying to say the entire time. He found it was definitely not correct because.
Oh no, he dropped his pen.
Gosh. Okay. I lost it. About round 3, end of day 2, it's a huge drop off. I didn't do huge very well because I just hand wrote it. And then it gets very flat here. The magic number is pick 100. About pick 100, the players become this right here is a coin flip mostly. People who think that GMs who think they know what's happening over here, it's mostly a coin flip. Over here is an educated guess. So the way they describe it is you have a multiple choice question, A, B, C, D. Here is like, oh, I can pick between A or B. I have a good choice. Here, you're like, I don't know. I'm throwing a dart against the dartboard. Could be B, could be C. But that's what the numbers say over the course of time. Like, and here's my last one. I threw this one at the last minute. There's a lot of little dots here. Same thing. Those are all NFL GMs. Most of the time, none of them are better than any others. That's what he also found. Almost over a course of time, they all make huge mistakes and get huge picks, correct? But like, other than like, there are very few exceptions that are slightly better than the others. They're all very much the same because some of them are learning quicker than the others of how to previously do these previous stats and not trading up for getting a running back and things like that, Rams. But until that kind of like that analytics becomes more viewed by teams, they're still kind of all clustered together. Yeah, there's a couple like the Tampa Bay GM made great picks that Ty Ackley got the Shaq Barrett and everything like that. But people forget 2 years ago when he traded up to the second round to get a kicker and then cut him a year and a half later. Like a lot of them do very good things and then they'll do Pete Carroll got Russell in the third round and then drafted Rashad Penny and Malik McDowell and like, what are we doing? Like, so people do great things, but they always like they'll have great stretches is what he found was really interesting. Like 3 years, they'll go through great runs and then they'll just be sucky again. So he thinks that like his hypothesis at the end is like they'll eventually figure out once the numbers become more available and people start like listening to the nerds a little bit more and they'll start to like get more efficient at it. But again, there's a lot more variables in that than people think. So yeah, day 1 and 2 is your NFL draft picks that you really want to pay attention to because they have most staying power by a lot more standard deviations than everybody else.
I would just like to say I liked your bar graph and you had a plot graph. So 2 different graphs. I like that.
They took, as you can tell, about 10 seconds total between all 3 to draw. I said I would bring visual aids. So
as we discussed in our text thread, I just want to bring it onto the podcast here. I am not saying these stats are not worth anything, but I am saying that I don't necessarily feel like a nerd needed to analyze this as much as he did. I feel like
you are saying this is correct. He is saying this is correct.
What I'm saying is it's like it's no different than picking teams on the playground. Like you're gonna pick your best players first, and then as you get towards the end, your players aren't gonna be as good, and you're just gonna take what's there. Yeah. The NFL draft is obviously not that. I would equate it more to a fantasy football draft. You know, unless you're a Seahawks fan, you draft Russell Wilson in the first round. That's probably not going to happen. You draft your players that are going to have your most value first. And then as you get into round 7, 8, 9, a lot of those guys are, let's hope they work out. Let's hope they don't get hurt. Let's hope their ceiling is higher than I think, or their floor is higher than I think. So I find it very similar to those types of drafts. Now, is this stat useful for people? Sure. I don't think it's necessarily groundbreaking math, but it's good to have that analysis out there because I'm sure people like to consume it. So when you brought it up and you thought I was angry, I was not angry. I'm just saying I don't like the speculation, especially to put it behind draft picks in a year. Like, Dwayne Eskridge, he's the second round pick. So according to your graph, he's going to have the best possible outcome of our draft picks. And I think we all agreed for the most part.
That's not what analytics does. Analytics doesn't tell you specific player is going to be good. It tells you in general
So
what to expect.
So, I mean, second round pick obviously has the best potential to do the most for the Seahawks. Whereas you get to Trey Brown in the 4th round, crowded cornerback room already. So I don't even know if he's going to even make the team. And then Stone Forsythe in the 6th, it's a big dude, so that obviously helps you as an offensive lineman, but that's not everything as an offensive lineman. You've got to be able to do other things. So when we were discussing this, I was wondering how you extrapolated it to the Seahawks draft picks, and I think it's just as simple as saying Dwayne has the best possibility to do a lot for the Seahawks as opposed to the other 2.
I'll say one thing and then throw it to Kevin. Basically, it's saying talk about the first 2 days, and then the rest is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but it's closer to irrelevant than people think. It's literally like we said, throwing mud against the wall and seeing what sticks. Someone's like, oh, they got this great sleeper in round 5. Don't ever say that, because they probably didn't. And they don't know anything. They also wrote an article about what sleepers are. And he said, whenever someone's a sleeper and they fall really far, 99% of the time it's for a reason. And it doesn't usually work out. So he found that was very interesting.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
For the most part, I do agree with Sean. There is devil's advocate to be played to that too. Everything now below that drop point is you also have players, as I mentioned in the text as well, to where that they're not going to be home run day one that you develop down the line. There are players that are kind of like diamonds in the rough, to where they just need extra coaching, a different set of eyes. People who had Adam Gase as a college coach are going to do different than when they come in and they have someone who's like Bill Belichick. You know, it's going to bring more out of them. They're going to learn new things, be able to add, because you're getting new coaches that are teaching them new things that they didn't know before, type of deal that could add to their game. Sometimes they have the physical abilities, or even just to be good, because every team only has like a certain amount of superstars that are above a certain EPA level, and then the rest you want in the good, solid like category area, and that's what you want to find in those draft picks. Is guys that just fit that mold, that can play at least 2 to 3 downs per series, that are not just going to F everything up.
Yeah.
At the same time too, the draft numbers that Sean are mentioning get skewed a little bit because every team has different draft needs, to where that positions of certain calibers fall.
It takes into position account into his thing.
True, but for example, like if depending on how many top positions are at a certain position, for let's say safety, for example, if a certain team doesn't need, say like the first 2 safeties go off the board, but then the next team that really needs a safety also really needs a left tackle, you're going to take a left tackle higher than what you're going to take a safety, and then that safety that should have gone the second then is still kind of hanging down there toward the second, third, maybe possibly goes down because you got to trade back. It like people fall just due to team needs and also due to GMs not knowing what the fuck they're doing.
I think
time too.
That usually gets weeded out though. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's just, for example, like DK is a big example of that. Like DK for a lot of people was graded in the first or like early second, and then he fell to the very last spot in the second, where Seahawks came up and grabbed him like just because one, and also two, certain teams have a specific, they have GMs and coaches that have certain ideas and dumb molds of how things are. Pete Carroll is a big example of one, of never drafting a corner that's below 6 feet until recently, to where they can't play, and they're obviously that's not the case. Versus some people like receivers or running backs, like a certain size, certain weight type of deal. Same with state corners and linemen and all that shit. So that kind of fluctuates on how a person goes into the draft. Also, injuries can play a part, schooling, everything. I'm not going to go into that because it's just way fucking much. But that kind of excuses it to a little degree. But for the most part, yes, I do agree with Sean. You want to try to do what like the Dolphins are doing and get as many picks in the first 3 rounds over the next couple of years as possible, because you have a higher chance of hitting a top tier caliber guy that you don't have to really put a lot of effort, like work into. And that's what you really want, because nowadays you're in a organization to where like you have, like, if you're hired, you're like, or say Robert Salas, for example, for the Jets, he literally has 2 to 3 years to show that he's turning that program around, or he's out the door.
Well, it's still the GM making the picks, but I get your point. Yeah.
Type of deal. So that's just, sadly, they should get more time. Like if you have, like, as I mentioned in the text, if you have like a John Gruden, Mike Mayock situation where you're contracted for a longer period of time and able to get players that you can work into to being better, you might see more of a shift on how things are drafted. But because coaches are such under the gun of having to hit on everything, and just hoping to God that it plays out, that a lot of times certain really good players like John Ursua just don't get a chance at all, and just fade out into nothing land, type of deal. And then they have to find work elsewhere because they have families and, they got to make a living type of deal. So
Free John Ursula is what I got from that.
play John Ursula. Do it.
Okay, can I respond to that, Matthew?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I largely agree with what Kevin said. My only issue is the average NFL career is less than 3 years.
That's
So
true.
or is 3 years. So my problem is with like the development, it's not baseball. If you in your first year don't show any development, you're basically done because you have to. Like you've got 4 years on a rookie deal. All value comes from rookie deal or a huge chunk of it because you got pay guys if you're good. So you've got to improve that first year. And if you don't, and I think what Kevin's right is, and what I would agree with what Kevin's saying is, I think a lot of it comes down to people look at how good you are is just simply based on your numbers. And we know that me and Kevin are big proponents of AJ Brown. AJ Brown doesn't put up the numbers he like somebody else does because of the offense he plays. That doesn't mean AJ Brown's a worse player than a guy who puts up thousands of yards. He just doesn't get the opportunity to put the yards up. So people look at the yards and be like, well, this guy was really good. And I was like, well, that's not how you should look at it. Like, I don't even care if the guy puts up 800 yards 1 year. He improves, I think, and puts up only 600 yards because I just need to see his improvement on a player because a lot of things can go wrong on a play or right on a play that he has no part in, And then like although he was actually improving or getting worse. Like if you put DK on the Jets, like Kevin said with Gase, he may have had like 300 yards his rookie year. And people look at him completely different, whereas he came into a team with Russell Wilson, where Russell makes him look great. The DK point, Kevin, yeah, I get it. But DK should have been a second rounder, or I had a third round grade on DK because he's the two things we've talked about this, the two things you want in an NFL wide receiver is route running and hands. And DK had real major questions with those two things coming out of college. And to take a guy with the two biggest attributes you want in a wide receiver and taking him in the first round is a huge risk. I mean, again, AJ Brown was the number one receiver. People forget all about him. And he was the number one receiver on that team, not DK. They played on the same team. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, you all forgot about AJ Brown. Like, not I'm saying you specifically, but like everybody was like, DK was so good. Why do you follow him? Like, AJ Brown was the number one receiver on the team with DK. Settle down. Like, so, but like, and the Seahawks babied him a lot. They only let him line up on the left side. They had him run very simple routes. But he improved, like Kevin's point, he improved his rookie year. He's still not there. I don't even think he's like a super complete wide receiver, but he improved a lot on his route tree. He needs to work on the jump balls, the down the field one-on-one stuff, because a lot of his stuff is still uncontested down the field stuff. But I want to see him get more jump balls. I want to see him get more contested catches. But really, that's it. But he has been improving. And people are saying like the numbers improved, but I think it's because the offense, like we said, Russell cooked for a while. So that's why DK's numbers blew up. And then once it stopped, DK's numbers collapsed. But if there was no let Russ cook in the beginning of the year, his numbers would look very similar or worse than they were to year one. And I think DK, regardless, would have improved a ton because people look at total yards and be like, oh, he improved or got better or, got worse or better. And I'm like, that is not how you grade somebody, how he got worse. And especially going forward with an extra game, it's going to throw people off. Like, that extra game will have more yards or less yards. You're like, total yards is not how you look at somebody improving or getting worse.
Probably a better example for Seahawks fans to know, like, kind of the point of it. Alton Robinson, actually, just kind of think about it. Being a 5th round pick, coming in last year, barely getting any play time, got you 5 sacks, and a lot of QB like pressures and stuff like that. He will, if you continue to play him and develop him, he could be like a starter for you.
I think the better one is Puna Ford, Kevin. And Puna was undrafted and it was finally cracked some playing time and it was just a beast last year. It was an absolute beast. Yeah,
like all these guys.
Yeah. Jermaine Kearse.
I would say we talked about this. We talked about this in the text message. 18 of the 22 Seahawks starters last year were first through third rounders, and then everybody else came from here. You want to Kevin's point, you want to fill it out here. Your starters are here. These guys down here are your bench players. Now, you can hit like a Kittle, a Sherman, or a thing. Hitting down here is fine. But like Kevin said, the Dolphins trade up to get as many of these as possible is what GMs they want you to do. Like, that's why when the the Eagles traded, the Cowboys traded down with the Eagles, and the Eagles moved up only 2 spots. And the Eagles and the Cowboys only got a 3rd round because that 3rd round is really valuable still. Like, it's a top 100 pick. So they're like, well, they only got a 3rd rounder. I'm like, they weren't going to get any more for trading only 2 picks back and still got the guy they wanted.
That was a steal. Yeah.
They got the guy they wanted and still got a top 100 pick. That's like the mark of like how people are going to start viewing picks.
To explain to fans too why we're saying this as well, it's because of how the NFL is run. If it was run like baseball where there is no salary cap, then you're going to have more of prospect people that you can time to develop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
or
because
Matthew's point, there's no developmental league or anything like that. There's no way to do that.
But because of what Sean said, you only have that 3 years average minimum because they don't want to pay you big money deals to be a guy that's kind of there that we could just see, be a superstar probably like year 5, year 6, and like you hope and pray. Now, if the whole salary cap thing changes, then yes. But unfortunately, with the way it is, it's kind of going how Sean mentioned it. You want to go the Dolphins route and try to get as many picks in those top 3 as possible.
I mean, I completely agree with Kevin. People are underdeveloped, but I think in the way that currently structured, you can't afford to take chances and develop guys. Like it just doesn't reward in the long run. It doesn't really reward you for taking that many gambles on developmental guys. Because like Kevin said, like let's say you take 2 years development a guy and he's a beast. Well, now you only have 2 years of that guy and he's going to make, I don't know, he's a wide receiver. He's going to make $20 million the next year. Like you only got 2 years out of a guy.
The only thing I could think of would be like weird athletic prospects on other positions, kind of like a Stone, what they did with Stone. Because you got a guy who's like 6'9", that he, like from what I saw from the tape, he does have very good balance for a dude who's 6'9". There's just things that like speed guys getting around him and stuff like that. Using him, teaching him how to defend against stuff like that. If you can progress that in 1 to 2 years, that's something that can pay off in the long run type of deal. Just because it's very hard to find big bodied 6'9" guys that can be your, left or right. You eventually left tackle, but or starting right tackle for the next couple of years.
I'm just going to point to this area again. Be very careful.
And I do want to kind of put a bow on this. We are going a little over an hour here. So we did talk a little bit about how, like, I especially want to like emphasize the quarterback position because there was a time once where you drafted a guy, he sat a couple years behind the veteran, he kind of learned a little bit, and he had time to kind of develop, learn the offense, that sort of thing. That's not a thing anymore. That's never going to be a thing anymore unless you have a developmental league, because this need to maximize the value of a rookie contract is never going to allow you to just draft a guy in the first few rounds and sit him, because you need to maximize that draft capital while you still have it. And I mean, I don't know if that's an evolution of the game or if it's just part of the business part of it. I'm sure it's probably a little bit of both, but can we say how much the Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre helped? No, but can I say it didn't help? I would say it did. I mean, I don't really see how sitting behind one of the best quarterbacks that era and learning from him, picking his brain, learning how he goes through his day-to-day
He had a
routine.
lot of bad habits. Brett Favre did. Yeah.
I mean, obviously Aaron didn't take everything, but once he got his turn, he was ready. Like he was ready.
You could argue he was ready before. My issue was, and you'd have more years of cheap quarterback play. The issue is like with that is like, how do I want to phrase this? And I was talking about somebody this at work. NFL, like, there's no developmental league, but if you're drafting a quarterback in the first round, Baltimore's very good at this because Baltimore is very analytic driven. So they traded up in the first round to get Lamar Jackson because in the first round you have a 5th year option. So technically you get another year of a guy. So they snuck up, got another round for Lamar Jackson. That's why they took the 32nd pick, the lowest weighted, but got that first round pick, made him a first rounder. So, because that first round, it's pretty valuable to get your quarterback, and that's where you usually get your best quarterbacks now, because teams are understanding that really when you try to wait on those Russell Wilsons, Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady's, they understand now how truly so much more valuable a quarterback is than every other position, that you cannot wait past the first round. You have to try to throw your dice in the first round to get that guy to change your franchise. What I would say is for the developmental thing, I think you still can. You just, with those extra years, Matthew, you can't wait a full year. I don't even agree that with the waiting the Mahomes thing, I don't think it's a Herbert thing either, and throwing him after one game. I think you kind of do like a Baker Mayfield, and you give him a couple games, but you have to know what you got in your guy year one. Because if you have to, like a Rosen, if you have to scratch it and go again, and get a Kyler Murray. We all saw how that has worked out well for the Cardinals. You need to know what he is at least partially there year one. Now, yes, he can improve, but you need to know what your starting base is with your quarterback year one. Because like you saw Sam Darnold, or it's not Sam Darnold, Rosen just was not it. Like you see year one, you're like trash. Or you see like guys like, he's got some potential. Like a Josh Allen was not very good year one, but you saw like how he could get better year two and got better. But you need to play that guy at least a little bit. I'm not saying like start him after one game like a Herbert, because that's kind of rare, or start him day one even. But you should probably give him a couple games, like Matthew said, to sit on the bench and see how NFL week to week preparation, because a lot of teams are coming, quarterbacks are running pro style offenses in college anyways at this point.
I think the best example of this was Tua last year, actually, because they went to Ryan, they went to Tua, they went to Ryan, they went to Tua. It was just kind of based on.
Yeah. I think Dolphins, I don't think they did either quarterback any favor. You let your guy, Fitzpatrick, do his thing and then let Tua go. Because regardless, Dolphins were not winning the division. They might have won the division, but they were going to get slaughtered in the first round anyways. You're not winning a Super Bowl that first year. You need to know what Tua is, because again, like Kevin said, they have a high draft pick this year. If they didn't find out who Tua was and didn't like him, they could have taken another guy this year. They've determined that they like Tua. That's fine. But I would have just like, hey, first 6 weeks.
They like Tua for now.
Yeah. They would have taken Field. They had the third overall pick. They would have taken a quarterback if they really hated
absolutely.
Tua. Tua's their guy. So, but like to Kevin's point, like give him 6 weeks, let him play the last 10 and find out if he's your guy or not. Because they had a third overall pick. They could have taken Trey Lance. They could have taken anybody past the 1 and 2 guys.
I mean, he's your guy until he's not. Like it's an Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick situation. A guy could just come up, take your job, and that could be it. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes took Alex Smith's job.
Alex Smith had reached his kind of, well, that was how Tom Brady got his job. Drew Bledsoe out one game and then Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah, exactly.
I think guys reach their peak, but I think that's where the NFL is going to go. You're going to have to develop during the season, that first season, but it's too valuable to have them sit the whole year. You can't waste that year of that deal.
All right. Well, let us know what you. Sorry, Kevin. You want to wrap it up? Kevin, wrap it up.
What I was going to say is, it's honestly probably the reason, as Sean mentioned, fifth-year option. It's probably the reason, because Green Bay fans wonder why Green Bay took Jordan Love in the first, because you have Aaron Rodgers. For Aaron Rodgers is what, 36? You only have him roughly for a couple more years.
36, 37.
And,
is he 37?
He might not even be back this year because of, even though Adam Schefter kind of blew that up. We'll not get into that. But having that situation versus it's going to pan out a little bit better for him versus the Kyle Trask situation, who's now in Tampa Bay sitting behind Tom Brady. Tom Brady's probably going to play for another year or two, most likely. And then you have 2 years to hope that Kyle Trask is it type of deal. And before you have to pay him versus like you have Aaron Rodgers this year, next, even if Aaron Rodgers plays another 2 years, you still have more time with Jordan Love to find out if that's the eventual replacement because of that fifth-year option. You don't have to pay him a crap ton of money. Or then hope that he hits the market and nobody else picks him up type of deal. It's very, the quarterback thing is super weird. I wish it wasn't, but a lot of teams are making the smarter move. And I think it was smart by Green Bay to come up and looking back at it to get that fifth-year option, especially knowing that Aaron Rodgers is flaky, emotional. I don't know how much of it is true because apparently Adam Schefter just woke up and just said, F Aaron Rodgers, let's mix some crap up. Type of deal. And it kind of shows you that Adam Schefter might have a little too much power, but we won't go into that this episode. But it'll just be interesting to see, that's the stuff to watch over the next couple of years, especially. And it can pan out, and that's another thing to watch too. That's a scenario where you want to take a third round is a Kyle Trask scenario. Like he's going to sit behind Tom Brady and learn the ins and outs. Like he's got everything what he needs physically. It's just what he needs to know about the NFL being a higher speed. Yes, playing it helps more, but when you're not a first round talent like Mahomes, Russell was a first round talent, but people were dumb. Like Andrew Luck, like Kyler Murray and stuff like that. It takes a little bit more time to get everything, and sitting behind Tom Brady will help. Now, does it mean it's going to? I mean, we saw with Jimmy Garoppolo. No. it can make them at
I
least.
mean, I don't know about that. It kind of worked
serviceable.
out pretty well for him, actually. But
Jimmy's
they
like
also have
a
a-
fine quarterback. He's not
They-
bad.
they-
He's fine.
They
He's
also
fine.
have a top 5 O-line, top 5
Yeah,
running game,
I mean-
top 5 defense, top. I mean, not to say he's bad, but I'm
He's
saying
fine.
is he a
He's
top?
fine. He's just
Did
he's
sitting
fine.
behind Tom Brady make him a top 10 quarterback? No. So will it do it for Trash? Maybe. I don't know. Trash showed some really good stuff at Florida. So it'll be a kind of we'll see type of deal.
Highest rated quarterback actually last year. So
all right. Well, let us know what you think of the Seahawks situation, their draft picks, Sean's nerd stat of the week, DK running the
Mike
100-meter
Grass.
dash.
Let me know about my grass.
Tweet at us. I'm at Beta_Matt. Sean's at Sean_Betty. Kev's at Kev Believes First Team Believes me in a 3. Next week, we are going to have more Mariners talk. Hopefully, some Jarred Kelenic home runs to talk about, and the NFL schedule will be released this Wednesday. So I am sure we will break that down and tell you which games to watch and which games to cringe until the very end when the Seahawks hopefully pull it out, but maybe lose in overtime. Who knows? So tune in next week, and we will see you next time on Washington East to West Sports.
This is our picture.
Charles,
What?